Welcome to this edition of At the Mic. I'm your host, Keith Malinak. This week, I sit down with someone who works behind the scenes with Glenn Beck. My coworker, Mikayla Hedrick, tells us her story next. But first, I want to take you back to episode 88 of At the Mic. My guest was Dave Matthews, who founded American Pride Roasters Coffee. In that episode, number 88, Dave tells us about the origins of the Doc Thompson Bacon Blast blend from APR Coffee. Dave fulfilled a promise to Doc by making the unique, salty, and smoky flavor brew that had the memorable taste of bacon. Dave fulfilled a promise to our late friend Doc Thompson by making that unique, salty, and smoky flavor brew that had that memorable taste of bacon in it. Haha, good morning. Oh my goodness, that flavor isn't the coffee for everyone, but there's also a chocolate version of that Doc Thompson Bacon Blast as well. You can give it a try today, along with so many other flavorful options at aprcoffee.com. Use promo code ATM at checkout. That's going to get you 10% off your entire purchase. That's aprcoffee.com.
You're listening to At the Mic with Keith, an independent podcast production.
Mikayla Hedrick has traveled the world, and though she found her calling, that eventually led to another calling. We get to hear the life story of a coworker of mine who's a big part of the Glenn Beck program, and her story starts right now here on At the Mic. Joined in studio today by my fellow Blaze employee, Mikayla Hedrick.
Yes, and I'm going for Mikayla G. Hedrick. I'm trying to make that a thing with the G.
You wanna hang on to that G. Because you were recently married.
I'm recently married,
So that's a new last name for you.
Hedrick, brand new. It's not my legal last name yet because the IRS is so slow. But yes, my maiden name was Getz, which is the G.
Okay.
And Hedrick's my new last name.
Well, that's cool because I think you got married, took a job here, and moved here all within the course of like 2 hours, right?
I got married twice to the same person within the course of like 2 hours. So I was living in Florida, and my now husband and I got married at a courthouse, which was the least romantic thing that's ever happened to me in my entire life. Wow. There was a woman in a yellow polo, and she said, basically, do you want to marry this guy? And we thought, do we exchange rings? Like, are we going to do it right here? Somebody was getting their passport done next to us, literally. And she's like, yep, you just sign here. That'll be $20 and I'll see you later. And we're like, well, that was as romantic as we could expect. So then we moved to Texas. We're legally married at this point, but our ceremony, we moved to Texas, and like 2 months later, we did our ceremony back in South Carolina.
Wait, hold on. What?
But I'm from Florida. But we met in South Carolina.
Where in South Carolina? We
met in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina at Coastal Carolina University. So we went to college together.
They won the College World Series about 5 or 6 years ago.
Sure.
Wait, you didn't know this? Wait a minute. I've got a Coastal Carolina T-shirt.
I knew. I was in the theater department, so I never went.
Yes.
Yeah, I never went to anything.
My wife was a theater major. I got it. You guys don't even pay attention to sports.
It's really bad. Yeah, I have no idea. But people said we won.
But you were there at the university at the time?
Yeah, I think so. When we won baseball. Yeah, I was there.
Cool. Well, yeah, I don't know what else you guys won a national title in, but
when I was there, we also got teal turf. So our mascot is the Chanticleers, which is the mythical rooster from Canterbury Tales.
Yes.
Because we were designed to be a humanities school, basically.
Oh, wow.
I don't think that sports was expected in the university's future, and then we got really good at it. And now our football team's apparently really good too.
They are.
This is so funny. I'm the least educated on this topic, but yeah, go Shans.
Is that what it is?
The Chanticleers, yeah.
I didn't know that was the thing. Go
Shans, yeah.
Okay. All right.
Mythical roosters. I could get into that more, but it's just...
No, let's hear.
South Carolina, there's the Gamecocks.
Yeah.
So we were like the Gamecocks, but mythical, thus better. We broke away from the Gamecocks to start the university. Okay. I didn't do that, but they did it at this restaurant called the Chat and Chew in this really small town that Turbeville.
Turbeville?
Yeah, I called it Turdville when I first saw it. Non-ironically, I thought, where am I going to? I'm in the middle of nowhere. When I drove for my audition, so I was an acting major, so you have to audition for the program. When I was going up for the audition, we were driving through South Carolina in the middle of nowhere, literally the middle of nowhere.
It's a beautiful state.
It's super beautiful.
I
There
love
was
it.
a church every 3 feet at minimum. I was counting them. At the time I was making a video, I think there's hundreds and hundreds of churches. Then we get to Turbeville.
Turdville.
Turdville.
Oh, they're going to love this in Turdville.
Yeah, I know. Well, there's like 10 people in Turbeville. And one of the places in Turbeville is the Chat and Chew, which became the joke that it's the social hub of South Carolina. The Chat and Chew in Turbeville, which maybe has like 2 people at it ever.
I see. Because we lived in Charleston.
Oh,
for
Charleston.
5 years.
I love Charleston.
My favorite city in the world. Although people that are still there warn me that it's not the same. It is any place, really. But I love South Carolina. I love the coast there. It's just a beautiful corner of the country.
I loved Myrtle Beach. It was kind of plasticky. Have you been to Myrtle Beach?
Long time ago. So it's been a long time.
Okay.
I don't know.
Well,
did
there's
you
a lot.
Hold on. Did you catch that? So when I say a long time ago, apparently that means it's been a long time.
Yeah, I got that translation. That was about 6 longs equals 1 long.
As I was answering your question, I was trying to figure out how old was I? Man, I'm not even going to tell you how many years ago that was.
Well, long sounds like 60, 70, which is not possible.
How about 40?
40 years ago, you were a kid, so you probably don't remember anything about Myrtle Beach. So let me tell you, it's as touristy as it can get. There's the Wax Museum and medieval times. I say it's plasticky. That's the best way to describe it. But the beach in some areas are gorgeous. So my mother-in-law lives there full time. And where she lives is so peaceful and so relaxing. But if you go down to the boardwalk, it gets a little iffy. Well, not sketchy, just touristy.
I just wanted to say the word sketch because my kids, all teenagers, are
Little
trying
sketch.
to get me to say cool stuff now. So I got to say sketch.
Is sketch one of the... Is that cool?
And sus. Supposed to say sus.
I've tried to use sus. Non-ironically, I can't do it.
Doesn't work? Doesn't work for you? By the way, complete hole in my story. It wasn't 40 years ago in Myrtle Beach. I know it was exactly 35. So 35 years ago. You think it's changed a little bit since then? We got to be careful, though, how much we praise the Palmetto State, because people are catching on to these beautiful places like South Carolina, Idaho. I contend Montana's the next to go. So we should actually say some bad stuff about South Carolina so it's not ruined.
Well, I said it was plasticky.
Oh, that's right. That's good.
I think I pulled my weight in that.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, my mom, I'm from Florida, and my mom used to say that she wanted to stand at the border to Florida and vet people as they come in to see whether or not they can come in. Because everybody... Well, I'm so biased. I thought everybody wants to live in Florida because it's a beautiful state. I grew up on the Space Coast area, near the beach, and
you could see the rocket launches, right?
Yeah, dude.
How cool!
It was. I didn't know how cool that was actually until I went to college, and I was like, oh yeah, I saw the rockets launch once a week. So my dad works at the Space Center, and I have other family and friends that work at the Space Center, and we used to watch the launches, and I used to go to space camp every summer.
Oh no!
And every year we would go to space camp. Well, not every year. I guess this was just in middle school. Depending on your grades, you would get assigned a position in space camp.
Nice.
And I was the captain because I had straight A's. And that meant that I had one job all of space camp. We had this whole week that we would be preparing. We'd be doing fake experiments, and we'd be writing the simulators, and you would learn your position. There was everyone from flight control to the flight team to people on the ground who were even in the media. I think you had every position.
Wow.
And as the captain, all I really had to do was ride on the simulators, which was awesome, and land. That's the captain's job. And I organized other things, but really in 7th grade, it wasn't a big deal. But I was supposed to land the simulator. This was my job. I completely failed. We made our whole mission, and then I crashed the simulator on the landing. I just didn't know how to do it.
Did everyone hate you then?
I don't really remember.
What is a media kid going to do during this?
I don't know.
Stand there and...
Those are the kids with low grades, I guess.
Wait a minute.
Oh, wait. That's true because we both work in media.
We're both in media now. Okay, so we're going to talk about what I'm pretty sure was a circuitous route for you to the Blaze. I guess really nobody in this building... Nobody takes a direct path. You know what I mean? Like, everybody's path is unique. So I guess I should reel myself in on that. So you went to Coastal Carolina University. You got your degree in acting. But talk about the stops you made, because I don't know how old are you?
26.
26. Okay. So you've been out of school for a few years. But you've done a lot of stuff before you ended up here at the Blaze with Glenn Beck. I want to know, let's go through some of the stuff you've done, and then you got to tell us how you ended up with Glenn here recently. So obviously, with an acting degree, you've been an actress, an acting coach. I mean, do you miss theater stuff?
I don't feel this is that different as far as what I got into theater for. Well, when I was little, I went to see a production of, I believe it was Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat at my community theater. Mm-hmm. And I was dressed up in a dress my mom made. It was a red velvet gown.
Oh, cool.
It was so pretty. And I remember watching the show and I was so enamored by the people on stage. I just fell in love. It's the story of every theater kid. And I thought, what are they doing? I want to do that. And when I look back, I think it's the storytelling aspect that really stuck out to me. I had storytellers all in my life. My grandma used to recreate. Do you know the book Watership Down with the bunnies?
Okay, so this was brought up on a previous
Watership
episode.
Down was brought up?
Yeah.
How random.
But I said I've got to read that, and I still haven't. Shame on me.
Okay, well, my grandma used to basically make spin-off episodes, fan fiction of Watership Down, and tell it to us off rip. She would just make it up at night in bed to me and my cousins, and we would be the bunnies. These stories were incredible. I could still tell you some of them, but they contextually probably lack if it's not from your grandma in your bed. But it was incredible. So I think what really drew me into theater was the aspect of telling stories, which I don't feel is very different from what I'm doing now. I don't feel day to day that I'm too departed, except for the fact that here I can't. In theater world, I can sit on the floor and stretch pants and be a little bit more of a hippie. And here it's a little bit more professional. I have to sit in chairs. And
I know, it sucks, right?
No, it's just different. It's just different. It's just a different environment.
Well, before we continue, explain what you do here for Glenn.
I'm a writer. So I write for Glenn. Mostly I'm writing for radio right now. I'm being trained on television, but that's a whole new beast. And
because you have to mix in visual elements and stuff.
Yeah, I'm just not used to that. So I mostly am writing for radio. I focus on storytelling, American history, and they call me the good news girl.
Aww.
So I'm supposed to be the part of the brain, the collective brain that focuses on hope. And I think that's partially because I'm the youngest writer on the team right now. So I have this hope for the future, and I am in general very optimistic about the future, which I feel is perhaps novel on the team at this moment because they've been working in news for so long, and I can see how that could be very grinding on somebody's spirit. But I feel hopeful, and that's supposed to be, I think that's my job on the team.
This podcast that we're talking on at the mic exists because I had to have an outlet where I could talk with people and it not be about the insanity of the world that we live in. Because I do that, my day job, if people aren't familiar, Pat Gray Unleashed, which is it's the show on before Glenn Beck on the Blaze Network. And I will say that it is absolutely, that's the best word. That you just used the perfect word, grinding. It is the world and this business in general. You're forced to be immersed in a very, very toxic world. And so good luck. I hope you can keep that that positivity. But
hopefully.
My money's not...
that is so strange. That's been said to me multiple times.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
It's almost like a challenge at this point.
Sure. And I hope that you succeed and overcome the stresses of having to not only talk about this world, but, write about it as well. And good luck staying the good news girl.
Well, I'm not only the good news girl. I think that's, I like that title because it's a good thing to live up to, the hopeful girl. But I am also writing on other topics, because good news is hard to find. We don't prioritize it. Sure. But it is there. And it might just be more about perspective even than specific stories. I'm a believer, so I have a faith-based perspective. Sure. And so I have a general sense of, I think good wins in the end. And at minimum, that colors the way that I see things. Because I believe in the end, we win.
So that's good that you have this, basically this expectation, I guess, right? That, hey, you're going to bring us some good news. That's really great. But you've been in it. I mean, you worked in politics. You worked at the state capitol of Florida. Is that right?
Yeah, really briefly. That was my COVID career. So this is a good segue into kind of the path I took.
Yeah, I need to know. Walk us through.
So I majored in acting.
Right.
And my senior year, I go to New York City. This is a rite of passage for acting majors. You go to New York City, you audition for casting agents. You know this, you're nodding your head like this.
Right. I'm understand.
So I went to New York, and I had always had Broadway signs in my room and thought, this is what I want to do. I want to be part of this scene. That was my culture, my community. And I got there and I didn't like it. I didn't really like the people. I didn't like the experience. And that sounds more trivial than it was. I mean, I had a casting agent who I went in to do an audition, and anyway, it didn't go well. And it wasn't on my end. It was, they had expectations of me that defied my morality. There was a way of life that I wanted to follow. And as a young woman going into theater, there was expectations of you that I felt were improper for the way that I wanted to live my life.
Completely understandable.
And I walked out on this agent who was offering me something, and that got me in big trouble. It was wild. I said, this doesn't align with me. I don't feel like this person will treat me the way I feel that I would like to be treated. And I had to walk away from it. And I had a few experiences like that I felt like if I pursued the New York thing, the Broadway thing, it would compromise my morality. And I'm not saying everyone who does is compromised morally. It's just we all have different standards and different ways we navigate the world. And I knew that based on the track that I was being shown, the future I was seeing in New York, that wasn't for me. So immediately, me and a few other people decided, what can we do with arts that has a real world impact, doesn't feel quite as frivolous. Like Broadway feels a bit frivolous to me sometimes. Some really good stories are impactful, but some are stupid, and that's just the facts.
Yeah.
But I wanted to do something. So my now best friend and I and another good friend got together, and we wanted to produce a one-woman show about a female fighter pilot, and we wanted to do it for the military community.
Oh, wow.
So she was from a military family. I was really curious about that community and how I could be of assistance. We ended up touring near military bases and working with the VA, actually.
Oh, very cool.
And the show was about, I played as a one-woman show. It was right out of college. And I played this female fighter pilot who's reassigned to flying drones, RPAs. And it was right at the beginning of when that program was expanding. And it was about what would be the mental health impacts of having to shift work in the military. For example, you go to work for 9 hours and you're potentially taking out targets all day in a little box, like a video game, but they're real people. Then you have to go home to your kids immediately that night with no separation. There's no way to clap off the game.
And you've been spending the day blowing up human beings, right?
And there's, and normally you could go back with there's some camaraderie. There's some people that you could talk to, blow off steam with. But for these pilots that are now flying RPAs, drones, remotely piloted aircrafts, they don't have that. And we were working with counselors right at the beginning to say, what are the gaps? What are the options for people who are experiencing this? So we worked with counselors who specialize in post-traumatic stress. And after every show, I would be on the stage with a real counselor, and we would talk with veterans and dependents about if my character had been a real person, what would the options be? And that was fabulous. So I so enjoyed that. And I stayed in the military community. We did a tour with military, it was active duty veterans and dependents, and they would tell their stories from deployment. And we would work with them to write it, and they would perform it with us. So it was more like spoken word.
Oh, cool.
Then there wasn't costumes. There wasn't big light changes. We would go to universities, and we would perform this. And then afterwards, we'd have a talk back. So that way people could understand the veterans on campus, what their experience was, and try to relate it to what everyone else is feeling. I mean, it was exactly what I thought I wanted to be doing. And it was what I was supposed to be doing at the time, I believe. And I was telling these stories, working with the military community, and then I ended up actually going back and doing a show working with astronauts, one of the coolest things ever, in Florida. And we had this, at this point, we had just been this ragtag group of kids just doing shows, and suddenly we were taking in money. And we're like, oh, crap. Like, what are we going to do? Like, because theater costs some money, but not a lot. We were doing a one-woman show. We figured out we were just taking in enough to fund our shows, and we're like, okay, well, are we going to jump into this? So we formed a company and a nonprofit called Boots on the Ground Theater.
Oh, cool.
And we started performing and doing these shows on tour, and we were a small ragtag group we used to joke that we were at the Spoleto Theater Festival. It's this theater festival in Charleston.
I was about to say,
know it?
When you said the word, my brain went, wait, Charleston.
Yes. Okay. So in Charleston, we were accepted into the festival in Charleston, and we joked that when we showed up that all of the people who had accepted the show were looking around like, where are your parents? Who are these kids? And we were just doing it. We were just kind of manifesting. That's kind of a young millennial word to say, but that's how I felt about it.
There you go.
So we were just kind of making it happen. And then that led me skip to we had finished our tour with the military community. I wasn't sure what I wanted to do next. And my boyfriend, who's now my husband, was going to study in Italy for a year. And so I thought, well, maybe I could do something abroad. That'd be nice. And I didn't know what. And I thought maybe I'll go to Poland. Maybe there's something I could study in Poland. I don't know. I have no plan, right? My mom's best friend comes to me and is like, have you ever heard of Ukraine? And I was like the country? Like, sure. I've heard of the country of Ukraine. And he said, do you know anything about what's going on in Ukraine now, or the history or anything? So I say no. I don't know anything about this. He gives me a book about the history of Ukraine and my brain explodes. I was reading about Ukraine under Stalin and then under Hitler. So this country has been through the ringer.
Sure have.
And now they're still through the ringer, as we know. They have been through it. And I realized I know nothing about this country. And then I saw a statistic about the amount of Jewish people. There was a leap in the number of Jewish people who were immigrating from Ukraine to Israel. And I was like, why is that? This is pure curiosity at this point. I want to know, why is that? They're making what's called aliyah, right? In Hebrew, that means to ascend. When you move to Israel, you're making aliyah. So skip. I decide I'm going to go to Ukraine. I don't know how I'm going to get there. No idea. But I know I want to make art. This is how vague it is. I think I'm going to make a play about this or something. I want to study the people, the Jewish people who are immigrating from Ukraine to Israel. I want to know why they're doing it, how they're doing it, how they can afford it. Most of these people, their parents or grandparents are Holocaust survivors, or they're a Holocaust survivor themselves. So it was this miraculous story that I could see in my mind of 2 generations ago. Jewish people had to hide their identity to survive in Ukraine. That's what they had to do. And now, if they want to be able to immigrate because, say, they're in a war, like they have been consistently, Jewish people have the opportunity to immigrate to Israel. Do you know anything about that?
No.
So if you can prove you're Jewish 3 generations back, you can immigrate to Israel.
Oh, wow.
So now what was potentially going to kill them 2 generations ago could potentially now save their life.
Right.
And all of them hid their documents. So they have to go on these crazy goose chases to try to uncover their Jewish documents because through the Holocaust, they would sell their documents, burn them. They would marry, and Christian families would marry with them so that way they could survive. I mean, everyone was doing what they could to survive, but now they have to uncover 3 generations worth of documents to be able to immigrate, potentially while living as refugees. Wow. This is the kind of stories that I wanted to go get.
Yeah.
So I go to this nonprofit, Ezra International, and I'm like, hey, this is the worst pitch of my life. If you let me follow your team, I will make something about it, art of some kind. And they're like, okay. They said yes, which in retrospect, I'm like, that was such a bad idea on your part.
Just out of the blue.
Just out of the blue. It's like, I'll make a film or something. Like, I have this nonprofit. We make art. we tell stories. I want to tell a story.
Oh, cool.
And I ended up in Ukraine. And gosh, this is so long. I'm telling you my whole life story, but.
Yeah. Well, that's the whole point of the podcast.
Okay. So.
Yeah. So, I mean, that included skip several times too. So.
Well, yeah. I guess we all have to skip in our lives.
Exactly.
But I ended up in Ukraine. I got a Russian tutor, and about 2 months later, I was in Ukraine by myself. And
wait a minute, though. Your husband was in Italy.
Yeah, so I didn't quite.
They're not in the same neighborhood.
Not even close.
So how did that work out?
It was fine. We were just dating at the time. We did long distance. He was studying in a villa in Italy. It was so bougie, and I was living in a refugee camp in Ukraine.
Okay.
Because I was the only American on the team.
Oh, okay. I got you.
And we would embed. I lived with Ukrainian. I lived with my translator. I would live with what are called the Olim, which are the people trying to immigrate to Israel, the Jewish people. And I would embed, and I would get stories. I would just have a GoPro and my recorder going all the time. That's
amazing.
And then.
That's really cool.
Yeah. So then we can stop there for a little while because that's fascinating.
Yeah. I think that is fascinating. Yes.
Eventually, I'll get to how I work for Glenn Beck.
Yeah. No, that's right. I forgot. That's how we all started this whole train. Well, let's stay in Europe here for a moment. Are all of your European experiences from this trip? This move,
but before that,
because I was looking through your answers, and there are a lot of European
other travels.
Yeah. So we will get back to Europe because I have questions, but you eventually head back to the States, right? Mm-hmm. And that's where Glenn...
So skip. I'm back in America. That's a lot of skip. We'll have to go back because most of my life-changing moments happen at that period of my life in Europe. But I skip. I come back. I'm still working with the nonprofit. We moved to Florida, which is where I'm from, but the whole company moves to Florida at this time. We're all living in one house together. You have to imagine that. And we're grinding. If you've ever worked in nonprofit or the arts, you know that you're poor pretty consistently. Poor and tired.
Right.
But we were happy. And then the pandemic hit. That cut out a lot of our work. But at the same time, there was a political tension rising. And I had felt that I'd been ignoring it because I wanted to be accepted in my community. And I had ideas that were polar. So the theater community is monolithically, radically to the left. And I'm not.
Right.
And I knew that would be a problem for me if I felt like speaking my mind. But when you're doing The Music Man and The Sound of Music, it doesn't really come up, right?
Sure.
But now I'm doing this work that has real world implications. And we have a company and we're being propositioned now. And I'm finding that the things that are being offered to us, like I was when I was a senior in college in New York, were not in line with who I am morally. And I was at that point again. And I was, not only were we being propositioned things, I felt that we were producing things that I just couldn't get behind. And they weren't bad, but they were not fully true. And that really bothered me. For example, there's a lot of really weak sauce environmental activism in theater where you'll kind of do this play that's generally like about how we're killing the ozone and it doesn't really have a point and it's extremely artsy, but it forwards this agenda. And I didn't want to be part of these kind of weak sauce things I didn't believe in.
Yeah. How were your troop mates, the people you lived with and stuff? Are they of the same mind as you or are they?
No. Well,
okay.
So our CEO, who's my best friend, and my husband, and we're pretty aligned. We have similar morals. We have a similar baseline. Of course, we disagree on some things, but we can discuss those things. And the other company members, I don't think I gave them a chance to discuss because I was so worried of what would happen if people knew what I thought. And I was a leader in the company too. And I was self-censoring at that level.
Oh, wow.
And I just felt that there was limits to what I could do and the stories that I could tell. And I was working at a children's theater while we were working with this nonprofit, and I was teaching these young girls and boys, but there was young girls, and one of them decided she wanted to be a boy. And I didn't know what to do with that as a teacher.
And you would see her on a daily basis?
Yeah.
Okay.
I was her teacher. Right. Well, not her school teacher, but her theater teacher,
sure,
right? I saw her twice a week. And nobody knew what to do, including me. And I slowly watched it go from one girl who wants to be a boy to 2 girls who want to be a boy and change their names to 3 girls who want to be a boy to 4 girls to 5 to 6 girls changing their names. And I didn't know what to do, and I did nothing. And when I got out of that experience, I felt that I could not do nothing again. I could not hold back what I believed to be true and right and good and beautiful anymore. It was like living a double life.
Yeah.
And it was too much. And I also think the world we live in now requires people to be honest and truthful and to care enough about each other to say the truth. And I was lying to myself saying, oh, I'm not saying what I think because I want to be nice and care about these people. I was doing it to protect myself. That's all that it was about. And I felt, I'll talk about God a lot because I'm a God person. I felt God say, like, you have to drop this theater, like that you have to drop this now. And that was my whole identity. It was my whole life. I mean, anyone, if you said Mikayla, they said, oh, Mikayla does theater. Like, Mikayla is a theater nonprofit. She wants to do theater. That's her thing. I was the theater girl since I was probably 6.
Wow.
That was my whole life. And I wrote and I blogged. I did some other things that were in that vein, but really it was theater. And I worshiped at the altar of theater in many ways. And God was like, you got to pick one. Like, you can't serve both and you got to come out.
So then what happened once you came to this realization?
It was really hard. It was really challenging. It was a God thing. I went to our CEO And almost at the exact same time, we both said the same thing. We both said, we can't do this anymore. And we said it sitting on my porch. And I said, what did you just say? And she said, what did you just say? And we both were saying, I feel that we have lost ourselves and we have lost our way. Even though we've done so many good things that I'm very proud of, I feel that if we continue in this way, that we will not be proud of who we will become. We will not be proud of the compromises that we have to make in order to succeed in this industry right now. We won't be proud. And I'm not saying that somebody else couldn't do it, but that was my path for me. And so we dissolved the company. That was one of the hardest things I've ever done in my life. We sat everybody down and we said, I'm sorry, but when I see my life all the way to the end, I don't believe it's the plan that God has for me. And I didn't know what came next. It was a complete void. I thought, I don't know why I'm doing this, but I felt really strongly that God said, drop this. And I said, drop it, but what do I have if it's not this? Which I was so wrong. I have so many things. Life is so much more than what we do. But I dropped it. And I swear, I'm like, well, I have all these ideas that have been kind of pent up in me, political ideas, cultural ideas, social ideas, and I've been saying none of them. So what do? I start a podcast, right? Start blogging. I'm like, let's just get these ideas out somewhere.
Cool.
And from there, one day, small podcast, I'm working for the Florida House of Representatives at the time because I thought politics was fascinating and I wanted to get involved. So I start working for the Florida House of Representatives. I'm podcasting, I'm blogging, and I get on a radio show. I start doing that. I come out full force with what I believe. I go the exact opposite way. I go from never discussing it to discussing it incessantly, and it felt awesome. It felt so free, and I was able to really refine my ideas under fire because I was doing it in public. And then I get an email one day, and it says it's from Glenn Beck. And I'm like, nah.
Wait, what?
So I ignore it. That's the first thing I do. No, seriously, I do. Because it says this email, and I'm like, this is not real. But looking back, I'm wondering why I would get a prank like that.
Right.
So my mom had been listening to him since I was a kid. And when I was really little, I had said to her, Mom, I was like 6. She tells me the story all the time. Mom, I'm going to be on Broadway, and then I'm going to retire and be Glenn Beck. Because I had this idea that I would make all my friends in theater first, and then I would be able to say whatever I want as Glenn Beck. That was my idea at 6, right? So I knew who this guy was, and I'd listened to him a bunch. And I get this email, I ignore it. Finally, I'm like, you know what? Maybe I should respond to this. I write him back, and I say, I don't really think this is you.
How much time had passed since?
I'm not sure. Just a couple of days.
Okay, cool.
And I say, I am not really sure if this is you. Like, is this you?
Is this you?
Eventually, he had to call and prove it. This is how skeptical I was.
Oh, wow.
I said, could you call me? I'm kind of feeling like this is some weird, crazy prank. Like, I recently became a public conservative, and maybe this is my theater people just trying to like...
Right, sure.
That's what I was afraid of. Anyway, then we communicated, and here I am.
Here you are. Yeah.
And it's all... I don't believe it was me. I believe it was God. And it was amazing because if I hadn't dropped this company, this thing that I felt was my entire identity, this life, I would never be here. I would have never even opened up the opportunity for that.
So he discovered you through the podcast?
And my blog, yeah.
Okay. And what was the name of your podcast? Because you don't do that anymore, do
No,
you?
I don't. Something Burger Podcast.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Something Burger Podcast.
Yeah.
And then I was
You've mentioned that.
blogging on a site called Ricochet just to get my ideas out there.
Okay. I'm writing this down.
Yeah. Something Burger Podcast. I'd love for you to check it out.
Yeah,
it's still out there.
Yeah, cool. All right.
And I'm proud of it. It was my first attempt to share the most vulnerable ideas I have.
All right.
That's scary. You know that. You do that for a living.
And so what did Glenn want you to come do? Then he envisioned you writing for him then?
I don't know.
Oh, he just had you come in here and you figured it out when we get here?
No, I'm sure he had a plan. I just don't know what it was.
Oh.
I'm sure there was a plan.
Well, how did you get into writing for him then?
Well, I started writing some of my thoughts. It was during the Afghanistan.
Uh-huh.
And I started writing some of my thoughts about that and emailing it. And he read some of it on the air and then had asked for more of my ideas and more of my thoughts. And I saw that maybe this was building into something
okay.
at this point. And I was speaking with my husband and I was like, if this becomes something, like we might have to move to Texas. And he said, I love this man. Immediately he said, okay, we'll go to Texas.
Very cool. Where were y'all were in Florida?
Florida,
Mm-hmm.
Orlando area, not Orlando. I always say we're from Disney, but we're like 30 minutes away from Disney.
Okay, I gotcha. Very cool.
So that's this roundabout path of how I ended up here in Texas, and now we live in Texas.
All right. I love it. Very cool. Yeah, there's no 2 days here at the Blaze that are the same, and I'm sure that that's been the same in your experience as well. So at least you have the variety every day.
Yeah.
Because you have no idea what the next
There
day
was
is
also
gonna be.
more like paperwork and interviews in between those 2 sections, but it's not as fun in the story.
No, I didn't gather they would be. So that's
It's a much
awesome.
more strenuous process.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and so let's talk about this, because when Glenn's doing a show, you have to be glued to it every day between here Central Time, 8 and 11 a.m. Central Time, right? Because you're listening to it nonstop, right?
Yeah, I am. That's when I go work out, though.
That's what I was going to say. You talk about multitasking. You got Mikayla here in the parking lot out there doing her jumping jacks or whatever she's doing with her workout routine. And because you gotta monitor the show, so why not kill 2 birds with 1 stone?
Yeah, I used to be a Pilates instructor, fitness instructor, so that's a big part of my life. That's what I did through college. That was my job in college. I worked at the gym.
Okay.
And so it's peaceful for me. It's a way I kick off steam.
So you run around the building and probably jump rope and
Yeah, I've when it got colder, I had to get a gym membership, which is not as exciting. But when I first moved here, day 1, I went for a run around the building. It helped me get my bearings. I felt more comfortable, more confident. Got my
there's a park right over here.
endorphins. Yeah, I love that park.
I don't know what gym you joined, but there's one literally across the street.
What? No, I didn't join that one.
Oh,
I joined an LA Fitness because there's one near my house and one near here, and they're everywhere.
Just
And there's a
better-
pool and a hot tub and a sauna.
Wow. I mean, no, that's not working out though.
No,
just
but it's
sitting there.
awesome.
That's cool. All right, very good. Okay, so
We skipped through Europe a bit.
yeah, we'll get back to Europe. Well, don't you worry, we'll get to Europe. You're currently reading The Cost of Discipleship by Dietrich Bonhoeffer, another name that's come up often on this podcast. I mean, what can you say? I mean, that guy died for his faith.
Have you ever read any of Bonhoeffer's work?
The book,
So-
it's arduous.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know. But The Cost of Discipleship is fabulous.
Yeah. Well, I've not read that. So
It is amazing. Its whole argument is that the German people had a philosophy of cheap grace, which is what led them to the fall to the Nazis, which was grace without works, was also dead. So he was saying that people thought that they could live any way they want and they would be covered by grace, like a cheap blanket, and that they wouldn't have to change the way they live, which is how they fell prey to the Nazi ideology.
that sounds like a book worth reading.
Well, Bonhoeffer lived the life. He walked the walk. He lived the life that he
That's well
preached.
said,
Yeah, like you said, there's a story about him that when he was executed because of resisting Hitler, actually he tried to assassinate Hitler. He was in a plot to assassinate Hitler. I'm sure you know some of this. And when he was going to be executed, before that, he was praying with other people. He stopped and he thanked his executioner.
I know, man.
And prayed because he felt so confident about where he was going and that he was on the right side of things.
That's a mindset that like I can't wrap my brain around.
He's a hero.
Yeah.
He's a true hero. That's why I'm reading it. So I'm trying to wrap my brain around how to even get 1/100th of the guts that man had, or the faith that man had, 1/1000th, and I would be blessed with that.
So your favorite book that you've read the Bible. My wife read the Bible from front to back. You know what I mean? Like straight through.
Yeah.
Is that how you read it?
I'm trying. So
you're doing it right now.
I've read almost all of it probably throughout my life in different places, but I need to go in order.
Yeah.
And I read the Torah the first 5 books every year, recycling. And so I have those books more on lock than the other ones. So now I'm expanding beyond that and trying to read the whole thing in order.
I tried listening to the Bible.
Oh, yeah? Doesn't, what's that actor? Doesn't Morgan Freeman read the Bible?
Oh, does he? I bet he does. Yeah.
That would be worth listening to. Morgan Freeman does the Bible? I love that.
No, I think I got to 2 Kings and got a new phone and just stopped the habit or something. Something bad happened.
That's such a 2022 statement.
Yeah, no kidding.
Got to 2 Kings and I got a new phone. So.
Yeah, so my bad. Okay,
That's
I got a question for you. Google Maps is your favorite app.
Duh.
Okay, so I think it's my crappy new Motorola phone that I don't know if it's a safety feature with the app or what, but does this happen to you? If you have Google Maps on and you're trying to do something else, it won't even let you type. It's my phone, isn't it? It's
don't-
my garbage phone that's trying to protect me.
Yeah, it's trying to protect you.
I don't like that. It makes it more difficult.
To text and drive?
I didn't say text. I certainly didn't say text. I said type.
Type and drive.
Actually, no, and it's not fair to say in drive. It's just if the app is on. Like if the app is running.
Oh, really? It won't let you do anything?
Every time I get a phone. So, you like Google?
I am a Google Maps fan, though.
Okay.
But that's mostly because I'm directionally
then-
challenged.
Yeah, well then I try Waze. And
I love Waze.
It overheats my phone.
That sucks. Waze is fun because you can get the shields if you get enough points. So if you tell people, when we would go on road trips, I would use my Waze app. It's so stupid. Is to get the shield. What happens when you get the shield? Nothing.
Right, nothing.
But
Just look at me.
if you tell enough people, like, oh, there's a wreck here and there's a cop here, you get points if it's verified.
Nice.
And then if you do that so much, then you're a Waze protector.
See,
you
look at
get
that.
the shield.
So let me go through my challenges here, okay? Google Maps doesn't let me type at all if it's running. Waze overheats my phone. And I went and I actually found, I was like, I wonder if there's a MapQuest app. Sure enough, I mean, that's old school, man.
Really?
Yeah.
There is an app, though?
Yeah, and it's garbage because
You could print out your MapQuest.
I used to.
Right.
I used to do that. I used to do just that. Okay. You and I have been trying to schedule this interview, and our schedules are just different, you know? And
You work the morning shift and I work the night shift,
there it is.
essentially.
Yeah. So we've been trying to coordinate, and I think you were being nice, but you were like, you too tired? You need to go home and sleep? I was like, well, yes. And then you started telling me about something with a sleep something. She said,
Oh, I just took this quiz like 2 days ago.
What kind of sleep? What was the question you asked me? What's your sleep?
Chronotype.
What is that? What?
So it's the latest quiz to know yourself. It's a very millennial thing.
Chrono?
Chrono.
Okay. Man, I feel old.
Chronological chrono.
Oh, thank you. Okay, so
Chronotype.
So I should Google sleep chronotype
Yes, you should.
and take I how many I don't like
It's
quizzes.
short. It's much shorter than Myers-Briggs or Enneagram
I
or
don't
anything
even know
like
what
that.
Myers-Briggs is.
Ask your wife, maybe.
Oh no, I've taken the personality test. What am I?
Like the ENFP?
Yeah,
That's
but-
Myers-Briggs.
Okay. Oh, okay. Oh,
So you've taken it.
oh, good. Okay.
What are you? Do you know?
Well, I had it hanging up warning people when I used to have a cubicle, and it would just warn people as they approach me.
Do you remember? I'm an ENFP.
No.
Actually, I'm an ENFJ now. I've changed.
Oh, you can change these?
Yeah, we change all the time.
I was an
INTJ.
INT.
I'm just guessing.
That sounds right.
I think you're an INTJ.
It was an INT something, I think. Is because what are the other letters at the end?
J and P.
I think it was INTJ.
Judging and perceiving.
Wait. Okay. So what? Okay. If I'm an INTJ, which I'm about 75% sure.
Introvert.
Yep.
Wait, intuitive. I don't remember.
Oh no.
I don't know. I'd
Hang
have
on.
to look it up.
So hold on. Let's do this real quick. Hang on.
I'm not like a quiz expert. I just happen to have just taken the Chronotype Quiz, which divides your sleep into 4 different animal types, and it tells you when you're most productive, how many hours of sleep you're supposed to be getting, when you should be sleeping, when you should be eating.
Oh yeah. Do any of those quiz results say should be waking up at 3 a.m.? Because
No.
that's what I do. Okay, here we go. I think this is what I think I was INTJ.
You were?
Introverted, intuitive, thinking, and judging.
Okay.
What was yours again? The
ENFJ.
ENFJ. So you are a extroverted, intuitive, feeling, and judging.
Yes.
So the only thing happening right now is that we're both judging each other.
Yeah, extensively. Endlessly, relentlessly, and ceaselessly.
So the sleeping thing will tell me.
I don't know if it's real. I don't feel I should be the evangelist for this since I took the quiz 2 days ago.
All right, so let's go back to Europe.
Okay.
Because you lived in Kiev. You lived in KYIV, the capital of Ukraine.
Yes.
And what year was this?
2018.
Okay. And you had a terrifying experience there. What happened?
Okay, so I traveled all around Ukraine, and it made me very happy to be American. There's wonderful people there, but there's a lot more crime. There's a lot more prostitution.
This is before Russia got there.
Well, they were there just in different parts.
Sure,
But they
yeah,
weren't
yeah.
there in the way they're there now,
Yeah.
like you're saying.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a lot of corruption, gangs, things
Yeah.
like that. So I was living alone in Kyiv, KYIV.
Is that how they pronounce it there?
Kyiv.
Kiev. Okay.
You have to say it like you have something in your mouth. Kyiv.
Got it.
I'm sure someone somewhere is listening to this, like one of my friends in Ukraine, like, no, Mikayla, that's
No,
not even close.
Yeah.
Me correcting somebody. They used to always correct me because my accent's terrible. My Russian was horrible. My Ukrainian was worse. Anyway, so I'm living alone in this apartment in Kyiv, and one night I'm making buckwheat is the American word. Do you know buckwheat? Yeah, I'll take you all off track. It's the best food ever. So buckwheat's the seed. I'm making buckwheat, and everyone eats it in Ukraine. It's like the food to eat. And I hear this knock on my door, and there were these men outside kind of yelling in a language I don't really know, in Ukrainian, and they were kind of yelling and pushing on the door, and I didn't know what to do. I was really worried that they were trying to break in. So I called my mom, who's in America. What's she going to do? Except for have a heart attack, which is basically what she did. And then I called my boyfriend, who's in Italy. What's he going to do except for have a heart attack, which is basically what he did.
Oh, no.
And I started pushing stuff up against the door. But absolutely blessed because I had done hot yoga a couple days prior.
Okay.
And I had met 4 guys who work for the American Embassy. They were from Fort Bragg, North Carolina. And I called them. And I was like, hey, guys, I know we just met. Well, actually, we had gone out a couple times because we were the only Americans there. So we went out to see shows and eat dinner and stuff. And we were buddies. And I was like, guys, I'm worried that these people are trying to break into my apartment. I fear I'm going to die if they get in. And these 4 guys came and got me out. I got to sleep in the American Embassy house that night.
How long were those guys pushing up against the door like that?
I'm not sure because of the way I remember it. It could have been minutes, hours, enough time for me to call my mom, call my boyfriend, and then call these guys. And when they came to pick me up, they were really worried because I was so nervous when I was calling them. But luckily, their job is to take care of Americans overseas.
Did the guys eventually go away before they got there, or
I don't know if the
them?
guys. My understanding is that my guys took care of those guys.
All right. No further questions. That's
and
awesome.
I don't know exactly the details of all of that, but what I do know is they came and got me, and I felt like they rescued me because I didn't know what I was going to do because I was alone and I was a woman and I was an American, and I think that these people might have known that. I don't know if they knew that I was American, but that I was alone. Sure. But I got to sleep that night in the sauna of the American Embassy house. They had a sauna. It's so bougie. If you want to travel to a country that is not as nice as America, maybe a third world country, go live in the embassy house because it was like they plucked a house out of Virginia suburbs and put it in Ukraine. It had a garage. It had a sauna. It had this full kitchen. I got in there. I said, are you kidding me? I had been sleeping in above this church for this couple of days before that. And then my apartment was really, I didn't even have a bed in that apartment. And then I got there and the sauna was so great.
Wait, tell me the sauna wasn't on.
I don't know. It was really, really cold. It was winter in Ukraine. It's colder than Siberia.
Have it cold if I want to sleep.
But I think, no, I'm saying it might have been, I don't think I slept with it on, but I definitely had it on at some points.
Okay.
I'm always cold. I needed it on.
All right. So that Kyiv experience that you had, one of the most scared you've ever been, obviously. You don't like flying.
No, I hate flying. I have to stand next to the stewardesses because if I'm standing, I feel I have more of a sense of control. I don't know if it's a fear of heights, a fear of closed spaces, or a fear of not being in control.
Do you tell them? Because it feels like post 9/11, that's a no-no.
They always let me do it because I say I'm going to throw up.
Oh, okay. All right, so if a would-be terrorist is listening, just tell the stewardess that you're going to throw up if you're not allowed to stand up.
They let me stand, and usually they'll let me stand. At some points, you can't stand by the cabin where the captain is, but I'll go stand in the back, and they'll usually talk to me, and I can stand. But I'm horrified of flying, and it's one of my biggest fears, but I have to do it all the time. So I do fly, but I hate flying. I'm thinking about taking one of those courses, actually, for fear of flying, but I do it all the time. But it's just every time. You would think that I would get immunized to it.
There you go. So you lived in D.C. for a while?
I did. I lived in Capitol Hill.
Okay.
For a year. That wasn't even in my timeline. Oops, I totally skipped that. See, that was in the skip.
Ah,
right?
Which skip was it?
So I was college, tour, Ukraine, D.C., Florida, Texas.
Okay.
With Glenn.
So what happened there where somebody was watching you sleep through a window? That sounds terrifying.
Oh my. Yeah, I'm like a weird event attractor as a human being. Yeah, I lived in a basement apartment. So in DC, everyone who can't afford to live above ground lives in somebody else's basement.
WEA, a weird event attractor.
I'm a weird event attractor. I really am. Have you ever seen the movie Mulan?
Yes.
Do you know the grandma with the cricket?
Yes.
And she has a lucky cricket.
Yeah.
And she crosses a busy highway with her eyes closed. Everyone says that's like me. Because I just always make it to the other end. They have these stories, like, me in Ukraine by myself. And they're like, okay, well, she's still here. And then I had this guy in DC who was crouched down looking at me sleeping multiple nights in a row. But the police came and got him, thank God. They were great. They came and cleared him out.
Wait a minute.
I was fine.
How did you know that he was there multiple nights in a row?
I saw him.
And did you not do anything the first time?
Yeah, I've called the police every time.
Okay. And they just didn't come out originally?
No, they came. He came back. That's what I mean. But I got my roommate to prove it. Because he had said, I had a roommate and I told him that it was happening. And he's like, no, that's not happening. And I went and got him. I said, look at, here he is. And he was like, oh, he's seriously there. I said, yes, he's seriously there. Like, there is a man watching me. So I closed my blinds eventually. You think I would have learned that sooner.
Wow. What?
That makes you sound like such a ditz, but I just didn't think about it. I just was thinking that it
Did he see that you saw him?
Oh, yeah, definitely. So weird.
Okay, that's creeptacular.
I love that you pulled these two stories out of my life. These two, they're so weird.
So let's skip back to Europe.
Skip.
Because I want to know about the biggest turning point in your life. I love how it's written. I had a few years that I wasn't able to eat without getting sick. Now, that's not what I'm laughing at. What I'm finding humorous is God told you to eat a baguette in France. Did that cure you?
Okay, so
you were having just issues where you couldn't hold stuff down or what?
Yeah, I had a couple years. I started having food allergies to almost everything. I was allergic to all sugar, allergic to gluten, allergic to dairy. Anytime I would eat, I would get pretty sick. I mean, I was hospitalized multiple times for this, and they couldn't figure out what it was. They were worried it was an ulcer. I was working with lots of different doctors, and I was getting blood samples, and my blood was behaving like an autoimmune disorder. It had different. It looked bad. If you looked at my blood under a microscope, it didn't look good.
Okay.
Right. And they didn't know what it was. And I was very sick. I kept losing weight. I was basically living on avocados, eggs, spinach. And I was hungry all the time, constantly hungry. And this was right after college, right before when I was deciding to go to Ukraine. This is what I was experiencing. And it was a really hard time in my life. I was just very sick. I didn't know why. It stressed me out. That made the cycle worse, frankly. And doctors couldn't tell me what it was. And I was...
So changing your diet wasn't doing the trick?
No, it wasn't working at all. I mean, no, it wasn't working. It was getting worse. And the window of the foods I could eat was getting smaller and smaller. And that wasn't psychologically good for me either because I was afraid of food.
Right.
And I was way too skinny and unhealthy and starving constantly. And so this is around the same time I was deciding I wanted to go to Ukraine to study these stories. And I was told that would not be a good idea because if I go travel, they can't, there's the doctors over there. Sure. What am I going to eat? I can't be reading packages in Ukrainian. And I felt like I needed to go do this anyway. I'm that kind of person. And so beforehand, I told you that my husband was living in Italy at the time.
Right.
Before going into Ukraine, I flew into Rome and we toured around Europe for a month together.
Oh, cool.
Amidst this all going on, I'm pretty sick and I'm eating very little. Like there was a day like apples and zucchini. I was so hungry. And actually this story is funny now because it's funny now. Yeah. So we were in Rome and I was just starving. Like I hadn't eaten like anything and I was afraid to eat. And we finally went to this place for me to get chicken and we ordered the wrong thing and they gave us just chicken fat. And I was so hungry, I started sobbing. They must have thought I was completely crazy. I was on the streets of Rome. You have to imagine like a movie cinematically. This is like some chick flick movie and this is the funniest scene in the whole movie because I have a thing of chicken fat. I look at it, breakdown, crying, weeping, sobbing. In the streets of Rome at night.
Wait a minute.
Like near the Trevi
That's
Fountain.
a menu item? Is that like the super
I don't know what it was. It was
item?
horrible. It was
It sounds
just
like
terrible.
a trick that they play on Americans. Oh, you ordered the chicken fat.
So this is the mental state I'm in at this point.
Yeah.
I went back and I listened to this praise and worship song sitting on my bed and sobbed. I can't believe my husband married me after all of this. And it continued on in this way, and I was getting stressed and hungry, and we were in France. Gorgeous, by the way. I loved France. And so blessed. So these are two contradictions. I'm traveling Europe with my boyfriend. Bougie, fabulous, amazing, but I'm simultaneously very sick. Those things were happening at the same time. Life's like that, I guess. And the moments were dramatic. I would go from high to low, high, low. And I was worried about if I was going to be healthy enough to do what I was doing. And we were in France, and there was a breakfast buffet at our hotel. Now, my husband eats like a horse. He just eats everything in sight constantly, and he always has, and God willing, always will. And there was a baguette on the breakfast buffet, and I was looking at this baguette. I haven't eaten bread in 6 years at this point. I'm looking at this baguette.
It's the magic baguette.
I'm looking at this baguette, and I'm not one of these people that thinks that like God says things to me, but I swear I get this idea, and I think it's from God, and it says, eat the baguette. And I'm like, I can't eat the baguette. We want me to die in France? Like, I'm not going to eat this baguette. Death by baguette.
Death by baguette.
I didn't, and I ate it. And then I ate another baguette. And then I ate a muffin later. And I think I had a crepe. And I just ate all day as if I wasn't sick. That was my motto. I was like, live like you're not sick. And I just kept eating and eating and eating and eating.
What was your boyfriend saying at the time?
Rock on, basically. And I mean, because I think he saw something happen. He's like, okay, let's run this out. Like the reverse isn't working. So let's see. And I was fine. And I'm still fine. I had to do blood tests. I came back. My blood was better.
What did you think happened? Was it almost like a detox then for you by eating stuff that
I think there's
poisoned you?
Probably a reality of duality thing here. One, I believe in God, so I think God did it. Mm-hmm. And two, if you don't believe in God, you could believe that my belief in God did it, because the mind's a very powerful thing. And that's possible as well, that it was a mind over. And I realized that a lot of what was happening for me was actually the result of like intense, my body was stuck in fight or flight mode basically. And that was based on childhood traumas. And my body was physically ill, but it was tied to, and you could see that, like I said, in tests and in hospital visits, but it was tied to something that was happening in my mind and my body and my spirit. And it broke in this baguette. It broke.
How
and
cool.
it seriously, and it wasn't like all of a sudden pure freedom. There were days I went forward and back and forward and back. But today I eat pizza and pasta, and I still eat pretty healthy, but I don't have to. I eat cake if I want to. And I do want to frequently.
Do you have in the back of your mind, like, oh my gosh, the other shoe's going to drop one day?
I used to have that, but I don't anymore. I think I've lived free long enough.
Cool.
But I think I also have read this book called The Biology of Belief, and about how what we believe can actually change what goes on in our minds, which can change what goes on in our bodies to a certain extent. I don't know that you could positive think away cancer, for example. I don't know. But I do know what happened in my life. And I don't know if I'd prescribe it to somebody else and say, oh, you're having stomach issues? Why don't you go to France and eat a baguette and then pretend you don't? Like, I don't know if that's what I would prescribe.
But that's what worked for you.
It was a miracle story in my life. And the reason that it was a pivot point in my life is because it changed the way that I look at faith and faith and the power of believing in something. That moment taught me that, and since then I've just kept leaps of faith, leap of faith, leap of faith, because it worked. And so that's why I'm here in Texas, right? Because I took a leap of faith somewhere. That's my whole life motto, because those are the things that scare me the most. That's not my natural MO. But ever since the baguette, I just think, what do I have to lose at this point? It's working. It works.
The hero baguette. That's awesome.
It was awesome. I have a love relationship with baguettes.
Okay. So someone else who isn't shy about their faith and has no problem expressing themselves is someone you really admire. And under the question, who would you go back in history? You know, you didn't go back to someone who's no longer with us. You went with Jordan Peterson. And that's another name. It's amazing how many similarities your answers have with people that have been on this podcast before. But Jordan Peterson, man, talk about somebody who walks the walk and talks the talk.
I love Jordan Peterson. Yeah, your question that you sent was, who would you meet in history? And I said, I don't think I'd meet anyone in history, but I'd kill to be at an intellectual dinner party with Jordan Peterson.
Yeah.
And I really would. I think I met. That's how I feel about him. We've never met. He has no idea who I am. But I found him through his first book, 12 Rules for Life. And it was so captivating. And then my husband listened to the biblical series. And that totally changed for my husband the way that he looked at faith, stories, the Bible, morality, responsibility. It was miraculous what was happening. And I watched that happen to him. And I thought, who is this guy? I got to go read this guy. And I would just love to be able to sit down. I like thinkers. I like people who look at ideas from multiple angles and who are willing to explore ideas wholeheartedly. Those are the people that I respect. I don't have to agree with them, but when people feel like honest brokers of communication, we vibe. That's what I care about. And I feel like he cares about things. That's why he thinks about them, which is why I respect him.
Which makes him unpopular with some circles because he cares.
Well, I feel the same way in a lot of ways about Joe Rogan. Joe Rogan cares and thinks. And he's on a different intellectual plane than Jordan Peterson, so it's funny to compare those two. But I respect people that think and that contemplate and that could take an answer at face value, which I think is really easy and human to do, that we buy our ideas in packages based on who we are and who we're friends with. And I respect when people, even if their ideas still all line up, it's because they reached it based on their own thoughts and their own exploration and their own discoveries, which is something I learned from Jordan Peterson listening to him, because he doesn't take anything from anybody else without really knowing it and studying it.
That's a fair point. Yeah. Okay, you got to tell us about, I don't know who the guy that plays Vivek on Grownish. And you and
I put in all my weirdest stories for you.
That's good.
I'm thinking about what tapestry this is painting for people meeting me for the first time. Like the baguette girl, and then it's kind of in Ukraine for a little while, and like a little bit of an actress. Like, I mean, who is this girl?
Stands up on the plane, makes everybody nervous. But then you've got this experience where the guy who plays Vivek on Grownish and you yourself aren't allowed on the campus of Farley Dickinson University anymore. Why? I
almost deleted this before I sent it to you.
Oh, do we want to skip this?
Oh, no. It's a funny, it's another life-forming story.
Okay.
In some ways. So, yeah. Do I know any celebrities was the question. I was
I was like, have you crossed paths with any celebrities or famous people?
And I said, well, this guy from Grownish. So there's the TV show Grownish. It's a spinoff of Blackish.
And okay.
One of the leads in it is this actor who I worked at a Shakespeare theater with in college before he was famous on the show. And we were friends. I think I kind of had a crush on him, but not really. Like, it was theater apprenticeship.
You think
like,
you kind of had a crush
I didn't
on him.
Really, though. Like, it wasn't like I wasn't like asking him on dates or anything like that. Like, he was a nice looking guy. If you've seen Grownish, you know this is true. Yeah. And he was nice. But we were really busy. We worked as theater apprentices all day. So it wasn't like you were going to strike up some deep, loving relationship. You weren't even going to really go on dates, right? Anyway, so he and I had a mutual friend who was one of my best friends who had worked with him at another theater. The theater world is very small. And we were going to go hang out and like meet because our friend had set us up to go talk and like hang out because we were working at the same theater but in different shows, right? So we lived in the same building and saw each other. So we're like, okay, let's go. And it's not a date. There's nothing about it that was a date. I have to say that because I said that I thought he was cute, but there was no date. It's important for the story that you know this.
Okay.
And we go to the campus where we're at the theater, which is on Drew University campus in New Jersey. We go to Farley Dickinson, which is this beautiful campus next door. And we were walking around, and I'm not a very impulsive person, like a person that would take like social risks. I'm not really that kind of human being. But we meet these students, and it's still the middle of the day, mind you. And the students say it's a tradition at Farley to swim in the fountain is a big word because there's no swimming, but like stand in the fountain, basically. And they were like, yeah, that's what everybody does when they come here. They like step into this fountain. It's like what you do here. Like at University of Central Florida, where my parents went, that's what they do every year when they graduate. They go in this fountain. So I was like, oh, okay, that's a thing. So everyone's like, okay, well, we're going to go. And there's no substances involved in this, no crush, nothing. This is the middle of the day. And they were like, we're going to go into this fountain. And I was like, okay, sure, I'll step in this fountain. Why not? So we do. And then nothing happens. And
How many people are in the fountain at this point?
4.
Okay.
It's not like a big party. No one's loud. No one's like ruckus or anything like that. Doesn't seem like it's a problem. Then later in the day, we're sitting somewhere on the campus with the students and somebody's telling a ghost story or something like that. And we hear this noise and it startles all of us, right? So we get up. Turns out that it was a police officer who assumes that we got up because we were going to run because we were guilty for having done something. We get accused of, I can't understand, there was nothing involved in the social-related drugs. Because we got in this fountain, they said we get accused of having been on drugs or drinking or something bad on this campus. There's no disrespect to the police officer. We're like, we're going to leave, blah, blah, blah. We get called in the next day to our theater director's office, and we get slammed like you have not seen in your life. I'm in college at this point. It was just a stupid mistake. I made a mistake. Should I have gotten in that fountain? No, that was dumb. But I didn't think about it, and it wasn't that harmful, but it was stupid. Anyways, we get called into the theater director's office, and she runs us across the coals. Well, me across the coals, because she says that I seduced him into doing this, which is completely untrue, and everyone knew it was untrue. And at that point, she's like, he's like an innocent angel, and he was a really nice guy. He didn't do anything like wrong either. Like, he's like an innocent angel, and like, you are like the worst ever. I can't believe you've done this, because he's been there for years, and I was new to the theater. And I remember thinking, like, I've messed this up. Like, this was a big opportunity for me at this theater. And I was like, oh no. So I called my parents, and I called one of my professors from college who'd helped me get this job. And I was like, oh my gosh. Like, they're like, I can stay, but basically, like, you're on the thinnest ice that's ever existed. And I felt horrible, just terrible.
From stepping into a fountain?
I know, it's super dramatic. But in this theater's defense, now that I've been able to step away from this for a while, in this theater's defense, theaters are always on the edge of survival, and anything could put them over the edge, bad press, whatever. So having the campus next door to them angry at them freaked them out, I think. And there's a lot of anxiety in theater, and it freaked them out, and they were worried that I was going to be a threat to their success in some way, even though I wasn't. Okay. I really, really wasn't. But so then we got a mutual restraining order from Farley Dickinson University. That's how me and that guy from Grownish have the same restraining order.
Oh,
and
man.
We accepted it, and it was kind of funny and horrible. But that summer, now it's really funny, but that summer was when I learned how to stay when I wanted to go, because I knew I was on thin ice. People were ticked at me, right? Like, what the leadership was, at least. The other people, the actors, don't care. You know, they do. What's ironic is that actors are the most debaucherous group of human beings in the whole world, and they knew what I had done was the least of what has been done ever.
Right.
But I have a high moral compass, and I try to keep that, and I felt bad. I knew I'd done something wrong. I had broken a rule. Well, I didn't even know it was a rule at the time, but now I know that you can't get in that fountain. But I knew that I'd potentially put them in a risky situation, and I wanted to try to rectify it. So at first I was like, I got to leave. Like, I got to get out of here. This is horrible. I don't know what to do. And they're like, did they kick you out? I'm like, no. And my professor said, well, then you got to stay. Like, prove them wrong. Like, prove them that you are not this person, that they really did me dirty, like, in a lot of ways. Like, they said I was a lot of things I wasn't, but I ended up staying, and I learned how to work my butt off that summer. I was like, I'm going to be the best,
good for you,
like, employee apprentice you have ever seen. And I by the end of the summer, I had that director come up to me, and she was a really hard woman and tough as nails, and I saw that she had a hard life later, and I didn't know that. And this all contextualizes who people are and why they do things and why she was so angry with me. But she came up to me and was like, at the very end, and she just looked at me, and she's really harsh, and she said, I'm glad that you stayed. And I was like, whoa. And they actually invited me back.
Oh, wow. But you've got the theater. Sorry, I can't. I've got this. I
got to go work for Glenn Beck. No, this was many years ago.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's that story. And it's a funny story now, because we joked that we have like these mutual restraining orders, and both of us are the most milquetoast humans. Like, we would not do that. Neither of us. Like, I don't drink. Like, I don't do drugs. I am not like a party person. Like, if anyone asked you in college, they would say I was the girl who brought ice cream to parties. Like, that was the kind of girl I was. I mean, not like I'm perfect. I mean, I got in that fountain. That was a bad choice.
I don't see how that's a big deal.
It's not a big deal.
I'm thinking of a fountain on the campus of the University of Nebraska, and I'm thinking if someone stepped in that fountain It would just be like, okay.
I think it's a private university, and because we weren't students there, and I try to understand everyone in that situation in retrospect, because at the time I was just mad that it happened.
Wait, when you get a restraining order, is it like printed up nice?
I don't know. I guess this is a restraining order. It was just something from the campus police. Is there something that they printed it?
Oh, you should frame that.
I did.
Nice.
And I think that this guy did too.
Put it on your desk over here.
Well, luckily, I have no reason to go to Farley Dickinson University ever again.
I want to see this thing, though. That sounds cool.
Everybody thought it was so funny, and it was like this street cred I didn't want in college. And they're like, wow, Mikayla, like, you got a restraining order from Farley Dickinson. And I was still embarrassed about it at the time, but now it's kind of funny, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. So you say that part of what, when it comes to regrets, you used to be really worried about speaking your mind in college. Mm-hmm. You list people-pleasing as your vice.
100%.
I can understand that. You know what we need to talk about? This people-pleasing thing that you've done in this building. Where you have... See, they built this new snack area upstairs right next to my office.
I don't know if this is an example of people-pleasing.
And Case and myself were the only two individuals in this entire building that knew where this stash of awesome snacks were. This is the second tier snacks down here on the main level.
Yeah, this is the Cheez-Its, and that's the Starbucks snacks upstairs.
And Case and I had this agreement that we're not going to be, telling the rest of the world about what's available up here upstairs. And then,
I didn't know that.
Right. Well, then we sit down to start doing this interview, and we're talking right before I hit record. You mentioned the upstairs snack area. I was like, oh, I didn't know everybody knew about that. And then you say, well, yeah, they do because of me.
I told them about the good snacks.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think this goes back to being a people-pleasing person.
I wanted everyone to have good... I mean, I was so excited. I think it was just true ecstasy because I went upstairs and there was, instead of just Cheez-Its, there was pistachios and fancy bougie water.
Yeah.
And I came downstairs. I said, guys, have you been upstairs? And people have been working here for years. They're like, what's upstairs? And I was like, no. Are you kidding me?
No.
There's oats upstairs.
You don't
There's
understand.
granola bars upstairs.
That is my... refuge.
I didn't know.
Because my office is right next to this snack area.
I'm so sorry. I had no idea.
You gotta understand.
It's too late, though.
You gotta understand. A year ago, there was literally nothing up there but my office. Because I'm kind of like the Milton. Okay?
Milton?
Office Space?
I'm sorry. I don't know.
Millennials. So you need to watch Office Space.
Okay.
And I've worked for this company for 13 years. I've worked in this building for Glenn Beck for 10 years now. And I think what happens is people in a certain area of the building where my either office or cubicle, depending on where we are in the timeline, get so irritated with me, they just figure out a new place to put me because I've been all over this building. But they finally put me in this place that was out of the way upstairs. So that, I didn't have anybody to interact with up there. I was literally Milton. Yes, those of you listening know the reference there, hopefully. If not, go watch Office Space. So, anyhow, they put me upstairs, and slowly over time, they built Elijah's studio. They built like an executive suite for visiting, important types. Then Tim, redesigns the entire area up there that used to just be this ignored corner of the building, and now it's this posh, beautiful hangout space that I'm sure you've seen.
It's posh and beautiful.
And now I'm like, you know what I am? Here's what I am, Mikayla. I am the old lady living in the shack building, and they have built all this beautiful stuff all around these nice new areas. And then I've got this, keep the door closed, Keith. Nobody needs to see what's in there, So anyhow.
But we're trying to gentrify your neighborhood. That's why I'm bringing all these new people in.
Exactly the word I was thinking. So now you're outing the cool snacks up there. Now people are gonna come up there and they're gonna know.
Yeah, and now you listening know where they are too.
Now I've told the world.
Everybody knows where the good snacks are. I mean, they're significantly better. I don't know if that's a people-pleasing thing. Because I think it's courtesy to a certain extent is great, but I know that I have had in the past where I've sacrificed, I don't mind sacrificing how I feel about things, but if I ever sacrifice my morality or what I really think about things, then that would be a problem in the world of people pleasing. Like, for example, in college, somebody looked at me and said, well, like, Israel shouldn't even exist.
Ooh.
And I have a lot of information about that runs contrary to that opinion. And I said nothing. I just let people, and then he assumed that I agreed with him. So all these people in my world assumed that I thought the way they thought because I gave them no other reason. I gave them no reason to think otherwise.
Yeah.
And I regret that. I don't regret being nice. I don't regret letting somebody pick where to go to dinner. Unless I really, 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 really wanted to go somewhere to dinner, then maybe I regret it.
Unless there was a baguette there.
I'm not that big of a baguette girl anymore. Really, I would. It's mostly Thai food. Like, I need Thai food to survive.
But now you wouldn't let a comment like that go.
No, I wouldn't. I really wouldn't. And I don't know if I would say, you're stupid, what a stupid idea, but I would say, I disagree with you, I think it's this. And that is a huge step for me, and that's what I would do now. But I had to do that. It's interesting because I'm an actor and a public type person. I had to do that super publicly first. That's why I made the podcast, was on a radio show. Okay. I had to come out with all of these things super publicly to give me the courage to do it in my private life, which I've done now. And now I feel that I'm living one life, just me.
Oh, that's cool.
Just who I am, kind of take it or leave it. And maybe it's because I'm getting into closer to my 30s than my 20s that I'm already embracing this little bit of, well, this is me, take it or leave it in some ways, which is foreign to me coming out of college, this idea. But people used to say things like that, and I thought, what a myth. Nobody feels that way. But I think people really do feel that way, that they're who they are unapologetically, and that everyone else can work around that. And to a certain extent, I mean, unless you're a jerk, then you should change if you're a jerk. But most people were just different, and we live differently and think differently. And I'm starting to realize that I can also be one of those people.
Wait till you're closer to 50 than 40.
What happens then?
Well, you talk about being set in your ways. There's no changing. There's no coming back from that.
I'm definitely not set in my ways because I'm in the middle of ongoing metamorphosis, as you've heard. I don't think I've given myself time to stop and cement much. And I actually think there's value in that 100% in deepening. I think in set in your ways is another way to say that you've deepened your understanding of why you're that way. Ideally, or you just stuck your feet there. That's not ideal. But I know, like, for you, you've had time to refine your ideas and deepen them and know why you think what you think, and thus you can't just be blown with the wind, and there's a lot of value in that too. And I'm going to pursue that as well. And there's certain ideas I'm like that.
Or I'm just stubborn. A stubborn curmudgeon. Could be that too.
A curmudgeon.
Yeah. So what's in your Amazon cart right now?
Wisps. Do you know what wisps are?
I probably, if you
disposable toothbrushes. So they're the little mini ones with only one use. And they have the toothpaste in the middle.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, they're super cool.
And you put those on your wedding registry and people thought you were kidding?
No, I put a water pick on my wedding registry. The wisps are just in the same family because I'm a dental hygiene person. Big, brush my teeth multiple times a day. I'm obsessed with dental hygiene. I want a water pick really desperately, and no one on my wedding registry would, if anyone from my wedding registry is listening, I was very serious about the water pick, and everybody thought I was kidding. They said, I put on our wedding registry, we had headphones, a water pick, an electric toothbrush.
Practical couple.
These are things we really, really want.
Right.
We got none of them.
What?
Zero.
Okay, so everybody
got us cups.
If you're listening right now,
but I like the cups.
And you know Mikayla and Dalton.
Yes.
They could use for Christmas. They could use a water pick. They could use headphones.
Yeah, the Raycons.
Raycon earbuds. Yeah. What was the other thing you mentioned?
Electric toothbrush.
Electric toothbrush. So let's make it happen, y'all.
I'm dead serious about those too.
But look, I mean, I'm with you.
Nice.
What's in my drawer right here? Dental picks.
The dental pick. Oh, so I have wisps.
Oh, wait. What's over here? What's over here, Mikayla? What's this?
Toothpaste.
Oh, what's on this? A toothbrush and toothpaste. Yeah.
Okay, I respect that.
Okay. Yeah.
I used to be even more serious about it, which is the travel toothbrushes were from my cart when we went camping in Texas, actually. And I was like, I can't live without brushing my teeth for multiple days. I will seriously perish.
Oh, yeah. Oh.
But now I carry them around. They're super helpful.
Yeah. No, that's...
So I'm the baguette girl. I'm the travel toothpaste girl. I'm the girl. It's so fascinating getting to do this with you.
Oh, yeah. Well, I appreciate you coming here. I mean...
I'd like to sit down one time and ask you, what are your most embarrassing moments or the times you were most scared? Or the moment that changed your life.
People have tried to do this to me.
No, you don't. You don't do it now.
Yeah.
This is your show. You're in charge.
I was just thinking. I mean, some of these questions aren't easy to answer. You know, like when
it's very vulnerable, I think.
Right? What
You're asking very vulnerable questions.
Some people get this email and they're like, "Are you trying to hack into my bank account with these questions?" No, I promise. Okay, so on social media, people can find you on Twitter and Facebook.
Yes.
And your handles there are, it's by Mikayla G. So it's BYMIKAYLAG.
By Mikayla G.
All right. Mikayla Hedrick, writer for Glenn Beck. Thanks so much for coming on At the Mic. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Keith.
It was so great getting to know Mikayla and her story today. And just remember, when you hear something particularly positive coming from the mouth of Glenn Beck, it may very well have gone through Mikayla's hands first. And I'm so grateful that you spent time hearing her story here today on At the Mic. And if you get a chance to subscribe to this podcast wherever you listen, I would be personally grateful for that. All platforms available can be found when you head to atthemicshow.com. And if you're able to rate the show 5 stars over on Apple iTunes or Spotify, I would also appreciate that as well. Helps more people find this podcast. We try to bring you some good conversations in this crazy world, and we appreciate you helping us get the word out. So tell your family and friends too. We're also on YouTube. It's youtube.com/atthemic with Keith. Be sure to click the bell for new content notifications. You'll get alerted not only when we have a new show post, but just some bonus content as well. youtube.com/atthemic with Keith. Now, on the next edition of At the Mic, I'm going to sit down with popular podcaster and talk show host, bourbon aficionado Tim Young. He and I sat down while being surrounded by tasty treats there at his recording studio. Our conversation will be next week here on At the Mic. And I know I say it every time, but I absolutely mean it. Until next time, please go be free, and thank you for listening.
This has been At the Mic with Keith, an independent podcast production. Head to atthemicshow.com for archived episodes, sponsor information, and ways to connect.